Kaustubh Belapurkar joins in to talk about how the fund action and the flows have panned out in the month gone by. Kaustubh, morning, still a little bit of divergent views on whether or not funds are actually buying into ICICI Bank or not, irrespective of what the stock may be doing. Are you seeing tremendous flows getting into mutual funds when it comes to ICICI Bank?
I think last month was slightly muted. I wouldn't say that the month prior we've seen a fair bit of action, but I think last month there was some buying, but nothing dramatic.
Okay.
In fact, what we've seen on the banking side last month was more about Axis. We've seen a fair bit of flows into that.
Okay.
And SBI, the two large banking names that appear, in the most bought stocks there. But ICICI has been, we've seen that, it's been sort of creeping up. So definitely one of the more widely held stocks amongst managers.
If Reliance is one of the top MF buys in the month gone by, how is it that that's not reflecting in the stock price?
Because while mutual fund managers are buying, I suspect that there's also some selling coming in from foreign institutions. So when it's, that's why it's kind of really
I know
holding
that balancing is there, but it's just interesting because one would believe that there's a fair amount of optimism on the street with regards to Rel Jio and what it can do, and I think the latest numbers were quite reassuring. And so you just believe that at some point in time you'll have more buyers than sellers, and which is why the momentum would pick up. I was just asking in that context.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing that we've seen, and we've seen in October, the amount of FIS selling that's happened, and Reliance was one of those counters that we've seen a fair bit of selling on that. So clearly, that's one of the reasons why that stock's kind of stayed steady.
Okay. Infosys, people are still buying, SBI, but I'm interested in Coal India. Is this got to do with the adjustment for their, I think they came out with an offer for sale or something?
That's right. Yeah.
So is this an adjustment for that?
That's correct. So it was kind of a more broad-based buying. It's not just one odd mutual fund. It was, 7, 8 large fund houses buying into the stock.
What's happening with IT? Is money now moving out of IT? I mean, has the sector now reached its peak performance?
Actually, to the contrary, we've seen a fair bit of flows. But the one thing that's happened is it's again getting concentrated back into the large cap names. So you see an Infi, a TCS, a TechM, HCL Tech. These are the names that are getting money. Wipro's constantly seeing outflows from funds. So that's been largely the play. Mid-cap names, they've taken a breather away from some of these IT names. Probably with the exception of Hexaware, we've seen some buying in the last month.
Okay. You're looking at among mid-caps, Bharat Financial seeing traction. But Indian Hotels is also among the top 5. So, because we've spoken about NBFCs pretty often, hotels, it's a building bet ahead of the ahead of the holiday season, so to speak.
Yeah. So I would say that's a trend that's not only as recent as the last month. It's a trend we've been seeing through the year.
Yeah,
so Indian hotels, people have been adding positions, and clearly, that's the fact that you go try book a hotel today, and you see the prices are up. It's hard to find hotel rooms, at most times. So definitely, that's one sector that managers are betting on. We had Lemon Tree with an IPO earlier in the year, which people subscribe to. So definitely, there is activity and interest around the hotel sector.
Okay. Some of the mid caps and small caps sold by MFs include, the financing businesses. But I see a DV's Lab, a CESE, DHFL, NALCO, and Mphasis. Financing, is the jury still out? Are people coming back? Is conviction coming back, or are people still circumspect?
I think on the NBFC side, people are still kind of status quo on that. We haven't seen too much of selling, but at the same time, people don't want to get in. And 2018 was a classic case in point where managers didn't really go whole hog into buying NBFCs, valuations and other reasons. So clearly, they've at least been protected from that sense. Where as a proportion, they were more into corporate banks and sort of retail banks really. So that's helped them, and I think that's going to be a trend that's going to continue for some time at least.
I want to know about Yes Bank. Are you seeing serious outflows? I mean, irrespective of the stock recovery, almost close to 240, was it all just maybe just trading positions?
Yeah. I wouldn't say they're serious outflows because to start with, the quantum of money that was invested in Yes Bank by funds was quite limited. So, but yes, there have been. So, in fact, last month we saw 2 large fund houses completely pair positions on that stock. I think just given the uncertainty on that counter, they want to probably, whatever money's on the table, let's just
protect that and get
absolutely
out. Yeah.
Okay. Which is the top bet right now? How are people approaching the oil and gas space? I see ONGC also being one of the large caps sold by mutual funds. And I wonder why, because large part of October, this would be October data, right?
That's
a large part of October, you didn't see oil prices come off. Actually, no, we did see oil prices come off. Do you think that's the correlation that people drew towards selling ONGC?
That's one of the reasons. Also, it's slightly specific because CPSC, the ETF, sold a fair bit of ONGC, so it's largely driven by that one counter selling. But if you look on the energy side, otherwise, the likes of PPCL, HPCL, IOC, all the OMCs have actually gotten a fair bit of money in October.
Okay, fair point. That's that on OMCs. Just want to see what else is moving in the market right now. And telecom, that's surprisingly seeing some buys coming in. So Bharti, yes, is holding up by about almost 7%. Wanted to figure out what's happening on autos and auto ancillary, while Maruti also has eased off from its previous peak. Again, some recovery from the lows, but the positioning on Maruti, and more importantly, now that it's, and it's a very interesting dynamic which is playing out in the two-wheeler space especially. I know it would not get captured in the previous month's data, but for instance, M&M has relaunched Java. We've seen some poor performance from iShares. Stock at a 52-week low. What's happening within two-wheelers in particular?
So interestingly, what we're seeing is in the auto space, it's more now towards the auto manufacturers rather than the ancillary space where, and it could also be driven maybe because of the festive season that was coming up, and people expected sales to be good. So the likes of Maruti, M&M, Tata Motors, or even like a Hero MotoCorp, TVS Motors, all have gotten flows. Not very sizable flows from most of these counters, but yeah, we've seen some flows come in on these stocks.
Okay, and is there a clear exit that has happened from some of these auto ancillaries?
No, there's not an exit, but I would say that there've been muted sort of data around that.
What is the trend in terms of flows? Do you think flows are picking up? October was a very strong month.
Absolutely, I think that flow trend continues. So obviously, people talk about SIPs, which is now a stable book of around 8,000 crores.
Yeah.
But October saw almost 13,000 crores come in. There were a couple of new fund offerings, and some lump sum money also came in. So I think flows are pretty good and steady. The other thing that, when we spoke about last month, we'd seen managers actually sell in September because they wanted to create cash.
Sure.
They used that correction in October to go ahead and buy a fair bit of, so almost 26,000 crores worth of money's been pumped into the equity markets by mutual fund managers in October.
Great to hear that. Thanks, Kaustubh, for taking time out and joining in today. Good to have you on the show as always.